All right, so today we have a clip here of Bill Maher and Elon Musk talking about the woke mind virus and how it started. And I have to warn everybody, this clip is hard to watch. It's hard to get through. Quite a struggle. Here it is.
This woke mind virus, how did it start? Was it bats? Was it a escape from a lab? I mean, what is your assessment of what? Because it's fairly recent. How did it start and why?
So Bill Maher just asked Elon Musk, how did this woke mind virus start? Where did it originate from? Did it originate in a lab like COVID? Did somebody eat a bat? What could it have been? What could have caused the woke mind virus? Maybe it's all of the stuff people see on TikTok nowadays. But what I want to know before these guys start talking about where the woke mind virus came from is, what is the woke mind virus? What is that? Can you define that? Can you define what the woke mind virus is for me before you start talking about where it originated from? Because I don't know what the woke mind virus is. Do they mean people using people's preferred pronouns? Do they mean people being woke as in being alert and aware of racial discrimination and injustice in this country? What do they mean? What is the woke mind virus? I feel like they wouldn't be able to define it if they tried to, give a clear-cut definition of it. And so, how are you gonna give? How are you gonna make an assertion about where something originated if you can't even say what it is?
I was trying to figure out where it's coming from. I think it's actually been a long time brewing, in that I think it's been going on for a while.
So pretty much what Elon Musk is saying here is he doesn't have an answer because it's a dumb question to begin with, and it already doesn't make sense. And he's sitting here literally it's called real time with Bill Maher, but in real time trying to come up with an answer that would be a response that would make sense to what Bill Maher said. But there isn't even a response. You can't make a compelling argument for this because there just isn't one.
The amount of indoctrination that's happening in schools and universities is, I think, far beyond what parents realize.
No.
And I sort of came to realize this somewhat late. The experience that we had in high school and college is not the experience that kids today are having.
Yeah, that's a normal thing. It's called we progress, and there's new things. It's like, people saying, in 20 years, my kids, they're going to learn about the 2020 election and how Donald Trump tried to steal it. I didn't learn about that because that shit didn't happen when I was in school. Kids nowadays, they might not still be talking about it. Years down the road, the next generation, they're going to be learning about that in school, at least probably, hopefully, I would think that they teach that in American schools. They're going to learn about that. It makes sense. Yes, your experience, our experience, because I'm only 21 years old, is different from people that are much, much older than us. That's completely normal. That's a completely normal thing. He's talking about indoctrination, though. I went to a private school my whole life, private preschool. I literally went to a private preschool, private kindergarten, all the way through 12th grade. I was in a private school my entire life, and I cannot even tell you just the amount of different things that they would teach me in an attempt to indoctrinate me and make me follow this, it's Christian school, so they were trying to, teach me about the Christian religion. But even then, they would just lie to me. They wouldn't even teach from the Bible, the Word of God. They would just say fucking shit that wasn't true. And if we're going to also talk about indoctrination, at least, I don't know about public school because I've never been in a public school. I could hear what kids that came from public schools would say about my school, and they said that they didn't learn anything in public school. And I do think there is a conversation to be had about how broken the public education system is in this country, especially for people that in lower income areas, a lot of minorities. I think that there's a conversation to be had there, but I don't think it's going to be for the same reasons that these people would tell you.
And hasn't been for, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 20 years. So
I don't even understand how it's not even a reason. Yeah, our kids are learning different things. When Elon Musk was in high school, he didn't learn about something called 9/11. Every kid gets taught about 9/11. They get taught about 9/11 in other countries, I'm pretty sure. At least that's what I've heard people from other countries say. Elon Musk didn't learn about 9/11 because 9/11 didn't happen. There's just stuff that these people didn't learn about because it wasn't something that we talked about. But the other end of that, again, is people are becoming more aware of the atrocious racial history in this country, and if people want to teach about that, they should be allowed to teach about that. Ron DeSantis wants to ban college courses on black history. He wants to ban teachings about sex and gender. No, we need to teach. We need people to learn. Why are we going to limit what people can know? That's indoctrination. That's indoctrination. Talk about Ron DeSantis banning college courses. Talk about Ron DeSantis banning courses on black history. That is indoctrination. Picking and choosing what you're able to learn about. That is indoctrination right there. But they're not talking about that.
Aren't parents themselves also a big part of the problem?
How? But Elon just said that they had a different experience. So how are the parents the problem? Elon just said that we had a different experience than our kids are having now. So how is it the parents? None of this makes sense.
I suppose in some cases that parents, but I think like the parents are just generally not aware of what their kids are being taught, or what they're not being taught.
They're letting...
They are very aware of what they're not being taught. And again, I can really only go off of what I have heard other people say. I can only go off of what I can learn and read about in the media and through educating myself on this stuff. But a lot of the public school kids that I encountered that would come just straight from public school into private school, never been in private school before, would tell me that they didn't learn anything in public school. They would come to the private school and be like, this is way harder than public school. We didn't do shit. We never learned anything. They didn't teach us anything. We wouldn't do shit at all, ever. That's literally what they would say. I'm not making that up.
The kids think that they're equal.
I mean, yeah, let me give you an example that a friend of mine. Let me give you an example that a friend of mine told me, which his daughters go to college go to high school in the Bay Area. And he was asking them, like, well, so who are the first few presidents of the United States?
What do you mean first few? What do you define as few? Few is two or more, so, I mean, it's kind of a broad question to be asking anyway.
They could name Washington, and I said, well, what do you know about him? Well, he was a slave owner. What else?
Right. Exactly.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, okay, maybe you should know more than that.
What should we know? Tell us then. What should we know about George Washington? And speaking about George Washington, because I do think it is important, I'm just going to say this, and you guys can go and research this for yourself because I can't spend time talking about each and every one of them, but I've said this many times before. Every single one of the founding fathers were awful fucking people. They were all terrible in their own atrocious ways. Many of them did. Almost every single one of them enslaved. I don't think that there are. I think that there might have been like one or two. I do think that there was one that was completely for abolishing slaves. But speaking of George Washington, and I don't know if I don't think Bill Maher and Elon Musk are gonna tell you guys this, but back in George Washington's time, there were actually laws that would allow slaves to be freed. And George Washington, being the stand-up guy that he was, would actually use a loophole. He found a loophole in these laws so he could move his slaves around so they never really had to be freed, even though the law said they did. He found a loophole in the law where he could shuffle them around and keep them enslaved for as long as he wanted to. Washington developed a canny strategy that would protect his property and allow him to avoid public scrutiny. Every 6 months, the president's slaves would travel back to Mount Vernon or would journey with Mrs. Washington outside the boundaries of the state. In essence, the Washingtons reset the clock. The president was secretive when writing to his personal secretary, Tobias Lear, in 1791. I credit these sentiments, and this advice may be known to none but yourself and Mrs. Washington. And again, in 1780, Pennsylvania passed the Gradual Abolition Act, a law that freed people after they turned 28 and automatically freed any slave who moved to the state and lived there for more than 6 months. Dunbar tells the story of how Washington got around it, and that was that. But also, a little piece of history on George Washington, which you guys might have known this, maybe you didn't, but when Washington first came over here, he was an army guy, he was a military guy, right? George Washington, at one point, literally made it his mission when the Native Americans weren't playing nice with him, because again, they were the Native Americans, they were fucking here first, weren't playing nice with him. He made it his mission to literally destroy them. The government of the United States are determined that their administration of Indian affairs shall be directed entirely by the great principles of justice and humanity. Washington informed treaty commissioners heading off to deal with the Southern Indians in August 1789. Washington and his Secretary of War, Henry Knox, agreed that the most honorable and least expensive way to get Indian land was to purchase it in treaties. Offering Indian tribes a fair price for the land, Washington hoped would allow the United States to expand with minimal bloodshed and, at the same time, treat Indian peoples with justice. But when the Indians refused to sell, Washington was ready to wage war against them. Extirpate was the term he used. The Merriam-Webster dictionary provides two definitions of the word. One is to pull up by the root, the other to destroy completely, wipe out. After he dispatched armies to ravage their country during the Revolution, the Iroquois called Washington town destroyer. So, if we're gonna talk about Washington, those are just some things, some quick facts I had on Washington that I actually never learned at school. I didn't learn that Washington used a loophole to shuffle his slaves around so he could keep them enslaved, even though the law required that they be freed. I didn't know that. I kind of did know, but I didn't know Washington at one point pretty much made it his sole mission to destroy the Native Americans that refused to sell their land to him. But that's going to be it for Elon Musk, Bill Maher, and the woke mind virus. If you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, press that little bell, turn on all notifications so you guys never miss an upload.